I'm joined now by Georgine Griswold. Georgine, how long have you been out here?
All night. All the cold night.
Now, have you had any chance to sleep here on the sidewalk?
Not at all. We were here to make sure the float was secure, and we did our job well.
Well, you must be proud. The float looks amazing.
Awesome. Yes, it is. And it's been very popular all night long as people have stood in front of it taking pictures, talking about Louis, talking about Torrance. It really has been. I think it's probably the crowd best.
It's a wonderful tribute to Louis. The mayor, Patrick Fury, and other Torrance officials are really proud of this as well, and they were out to Irwindale earlier in the week to take a look as you were decorating the float. And Laura Fong has that story. Let's take it to her.
Hundreds of volunteers packed a warehouse in Irwindale to bring these inspiring floats to life, and some special people paid a visit to this float dedicated to Torrance's hometown hero. More than 140 local dignitaries and their guests boarded buses and headed to the Fiesta Parade Float Barn for Officials Night, hosted by the Torrance Rose Float Association.
The theme of the parade, as soon as it was announced, it was inspiring stories, and I think all of us in the city of Torrance thought, well, it's about Louis.
Mayor Patrick Fury and other members of the Torrance City Council got a preview of the float that honors the late Louis Zamperini. It highlights his major milestones in the form of silver leaves, winter berries, and much more.
It's been a really tremendous year for him. Unfortunately, he passed away on July 2nd and won't be here, but I think he's looking down on everybody who's working on the floats. I know some ladies are putting together the flowers right now for the Purple Hearts that Louis earned in the Army Air Corps, and the pictures are up on the back of the float. So it's a really special year. It really is.
And it was a difficult year to fund the float after a major donor pulled out. But with the help of the City Council and fundraising efforts by the Float Association, Torrance was able to continue this century-old tradition.
Torrance has had a big part of the Rose Parade for a long time.
Newly elected Assemblyman David Hadley considers Torrance the heart of his district and is excited to see the city represented with pride.
The combination of the tribute to Louis Zamperini and the release of the movie Unbroken and this float that Torrance is sponsoring in the parade, I feel very lucky to be representing the South Bay when Torrance is playing such a prominent role in the parade.
Louis Zamperini was chosen as this year's Grand Marshal, and while he is no longer with us, his spirit lives on, and his story of resilience and endurance will continue to inspire future generations, especially as his float comes down Colorado Boulevard. For Spotlight Torrance, I'm Laura Fong.
Louis and your grandfather became good friends. Can you talk about the last time they had the chance to see each other and talk?
In 2011, when the book Unbroken came out, Louis Zamperini went on a book tour and came out to North Carolina to the Billy Graham Library to do a book signing. And after the book signing, he went up to meet my grandfather, who lives about 2 hours away, and they spent time together. And that would have been the last time that they would spend time together. But they spent a lifelong, since 1949, they've been talking and being friends, and they would interact quite a bit in between.
And I know that your grandfather is legendary and has touched so many lives, but what was extra special about the bond that Louis and your grandfather had?
Well, probably because of the year 1949. It's right after the war. My granddaddy was literally kind of a nobody in the sense nobody ever heard of Billy Graham. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm just saying people just didn't know who he was. But it was 1949 that changed all that. With William Randolph Hearst said the famous words, "Puff Billy," and the media showed up. It was a scheduled 3-week event. It went a total of 8 weeks. It was extended twice. And we saw people like Stuart Hamblin come to know Christ. We saw Jim Voss, which was Mickey Cohen's wiretapper, come to know Christ. And right at the end is when Louis Zamperini would give his life to Christ. And so that's when that friendship started. But it was at the same time when my granddaddy became nationally known around the world, especially in our country. So they just became good friends afterwards and stayed in touch, and just a good memory for both of them when both their lives were ever changed. My granddaddy became famous in a sense, and Louis Zamperini gave his life to Christ. So it's a neat place there in 1949.
I've been doing it for 19 years, almost 20, and all of my assignments have been wonderful. It's what you make of your assignments. They're all fun, even when you're standing on the corner, freezing to death. It's fun.
Bessie, along with 935 other volunteers, don't mind missing a night of sleep on January 1st each year to volunteer for Pasadena's iconic New Year's Day celebration. And it's when you become a local, the idea to serve in this way is irresistible.
I moved to Pasadena about 8-9 years ago and live close to the parade route. And once I started seeing the parade live, it became a whole nother experience. And was asked to join. To become a member, a volunteer, you have to be recommended by a member, write an essay and do an interview. So it's one of the more difficult organizations to volunteer for, but it's been wonderful.
I thought it was going to be boring and long, hard work, but turns out it's actually one of the most fun service projects that we do. I do watch it on the TV, and I'm like, Mom, I actually made that rose float. I made it.
High school senior Andy Kim is in his third year of float decorating, while Torrance native Dawn Hamilton has dedicated time for 24 years to help decorate the local city float.
I see some of these people once a year, and it's like we come and see each other. It's like, oh my God, how are you doing? And we catch up, and it's like we haven't not seen each other over the year. So it's kind of cool. You just kind of catch up with your life, and people ask me how my family's doing because they've known my family since they've all decorated together, so it's kind of cool.
It's more than work, but a chance to make new friendships. For others, like Tracy Griffiths, it's taken on more of a leadership role.
Basically, we get a book of instructions and a float handed over to us, and it says, what materials go where, and we get a group of volunteers and get to instruct them, teach them how to do it, and it's like it's really an awesome experience because so many people have this on their bucket list.
Crew chiefs and volunteers decorate floats from December 26th to December 30th from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. But on December 30th, they stay until the entire float is ready for judging at 8 a.m. December 31st.
We have such a great time doing the decorating, but one of the best things is sitting in the hotel room with your feet kicked up watching the parade in bed.
The Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade offers many opportunities to touch volunteers and personalize the New Year's Day event.
Come to Pasadena and experience this wonderful feeling. It is once in a lifetime.
Building Dreams of Friendship is the title of the presenting sponsor's float. Honda is showcasing more than just one partnership this year.
Thank you, Honda.
20 Japanese students are grateful to be the inspiration that will lead the parade and showcase American Honda's involvement in the Tomodachi Initiative.
They arrived the day after Christmas. They're going to be participating in all sorts of cultural exchange activities, meeting with some high school kids in Torrance, doing volunteer projects. But really one of the highlights is going to be riding our float on New Year's Day.
As you see behind me, the Tournament of Roses Queen and Court are taking pictures today and meeting with the riders from Japan of the Honda float.
I want to join Rose Parade, and I want to learn about American culture.
Takumi Matsuzaki, a senior from the Miyagi Prefecture of Japan, was greatly affected by the 2011 tsunami and earthquake. He has watched the Rose Parade on YouTube and enjoyed the tour of how the floral floats were made.
Honda's been a long-time partner of ours in terms of providing vehicles for us, the Pace the Sound car, all the scooters that go down the parade route, and then for almost 40 years they've had a float in the Rose Parade as well. So it was natural for us to have that conversation with them once we started thinking about having a presenting sponsor for the Rose Parade, and it's been wonderful in terms of our relationship with American Honda because they're just part of our family.
Rose Parade 2015.
One side representing Japan, one side representing the United States, joined together by a bridge of friendship and cultural understanding.
The students have the chance to help decorate and then put their piece on the Honda float. On January 1st, the 20 students from Japan will be joined by 8 armed force officers who were in Japan to aid in the relief efforts of 2011.
Very, very excited.
I think it's an incredibly powerful, inspiring story, the way these students have overcome the hardship that was caused by such a horrible natural disaster, and they're persevering and they're moving on, they're rebuilding their country, and they're here trying to create more friendship and understanding between our two countries.
Now a look at the Grand Marshal who lived a life by example and was grateful for the opportunities to share his story.
Louis Zamperini felt gratitude in more than one way.
He told me as we were hugging each other and saying goodbye, he said that the book was the crescendo of his life, and he believes he's lived this long so he could see it written and read.
Over 4 million hardcover copies were sold. The book was only the beginning to share Zamperini's life of resilience and determination.
You train. You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
After Angelina Jolie read the book, she made it her mission to share Zamperini's story in theaters, while Rich Chinnen had another idea.
2011, I was reading the book Unbroken, and I had met Louis probably about 20 years or so ago, and I thought, if Louis is still around, and I didn't know that he was still around, I thought, inspiring stories should be the theme, and he should be the Grand Marshal.
But the opportunity almost passed up the hero.
When the Tournament of Roses called my house to talk about it, I said, thank you very, very much. It's such an honor, but I'm going to have to decline on behalf of my father. And then I mentioned it a few days later to my dad. Look at this wonderful thing I did for you. I'm being such a good manager. I turned down the Rose Parade and he hit the ceiling. He said, call them back. See if you can still get it back. That's such an honor. I've got to do it. I've got to do it.
Zamperini watched the Rose Parade annually and knew its impact. Not only the chance to share his story with viewers at the parade and watching on TV, but even members of the Rose Court were touched.
Louis tells a great story about resilience and forgiveness, and those are two themes in my life that I hold very near and dear to my heart. Personally, I had tried out for the Rose Court twice, and this is something that I've been really wanting to do to represent my city, to serve my city, and the first time I didn't make the court, I wasn't discouraged. In fact, I think it was almost a call to come back and to come back even stronger and to do the best that I could do. And here I am standing before everybody as a princess, being myself, and it's just a great example of resilience. And the theme of forgiveness is another thing that is all near and dear to everybody's heart, because there comes a point in your life where you have conflicts with other people and you need to learn how to forgive and move forward. And he's a great example of those two qualities.
Zamperini's legacy was felt throughout the parade. Beyond inspiring the theme, his family rode in his place as Grand Marshal, and his alma mater's Trojan mascot followed. The Torrance Rose Float also chose to honor him with 8 friends of Zamperini, including Billy Graham's grandson. All adorned his favorite collection of USC caps.
And behind me is the Torrance Float, titled Louis Zamperini, A Race Well Run. We had the chance to meet up with some of the riders. Let's take a look.
I've known him all my life, and we grew up in a small town of Torrance at that time, and it was just like a big family. Everybody knew everybody. He would have loved to have been. He was very proud. I wish he was still here. I sure miss him.
Well, when the Zamperini family immigrated from Italy, they lived over my grandmother's and grandfather's Italian grocery store in Olean, New York, which is upstate by the Buffalo area, and they became very good friends. And when Louis was born, they asked my grandmother to be Louis's godmother. We built a monument to Louis in our War Veterans Park in Olean, New York. So we put a committee together, we raised a lot of money, and just put a nice memorial together, granite memorial, and it's really there for our younger generation to remember what Louis stood for. I feel I have my grandmother and grandfather riding on the float here with me, and so, it gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor just to be here.
In honor of the late Louis Zamperini, who was the first Grand Marshal to pass away before a parade, a riderless horse was used to represent him, and his 2 children took his place on the parade route. If Louis was here today, how would he be feeling?
He'd be on top of the world.
While Zamperini is no longer with us, his remarkable legacy lives on through his children and the many people he's inspired, including Jim Standifer, one of his best friends and one of 8 riders proudly representing Torrance's float dedicated to their hometown hero. The Torrance Tornado had one more course to run, and this time the entire world was cheering for him. Even though temperatures reached mid-30s on the first morning of the new year, hundreds of thousands packed Pasadena's Colorado Boulevard, including Congressman Ted Lieu and his family. They came out to celebrate the 126th annual Tournament of Roses parade and to honor Lucky Louie.
We actually brought my parents, so it's my mom and dad here also.
up there sitting there right now, and with my 2 kids, so 3 generations here celebrating this wonderful day.
The Lews, who live in Torrance, said they don't usually buy tickets to the parade, but said this was a special year to show their support.
We're very proud of Torrance for being such a big part of this parade, and just very happy to be here.
Not only was American Honda the sponsor for the 5th year in a row, the Torrance-based organization Go for Broke teamed up with the city of Alhambra to pay tribute to Japanese American veterans from World War II. And to top off an already big year for Torrance, the city's float took home a major award, which further pays tribute to Zamperini's inspirational story of resilience and endurance.
It's a float that has inspired the city and all our volunteers, and we did it. We got the theme.
A race well run won the theme prize, meaning the float best represented this year's theme of inspiring stories. Vice President of the Torrance Road